I bet you have heard of Bitcoin already. Some people may not know its relationship with blockchain. Well, blockchain is the technology that enables Bitcoin. Bitcoin is one of the so-called cryptocurrencies. Cryptocurrencies are digital currencies based on blockchain, and they only exist in the virtual world. Bitcoin was invented back in 2008. In August of 2008, Bitcoin.org was registered. In October that year, a paper called Bitcoin, a peer-to-peer electronic cash system, was published by a mysterious person under the name Satoshi Nakamoto. The true identity of this author remains unknown to date. The paper basically proposed Bitcoin and explains how it works. In other words, this paper is a blueprint to build Bitcoin. In January 2009, Bitcoin was created with Satoshi Nakamoto mining the first block, which is also called the Genesis block. So what does the blockchain look like for Bitcoin? Here, let me conceptually show you what information is stored in blockchain. The figure here has two blocks. You can see that each block stores two types of information. First is the information about this block, such as its ID and who is the previous block. Second information is the transaction records. Transaction records are nothing more than how much Bitcoin is transferred from a person to another. For example, in block number 0, which is the block on the left hand side, first, it records that 10 Bitcoins are generated and given to Alice. This is exactly how Bitcoins are created and enter circulation. Bitcoins are simply generated as a record in the blockchain. In fact, they are generated as rewards to so-called miners. I will explain this part later. Then the block also records two transactions showing that Alice transfers some Bitcoins to another two people. Likewise, the second block also records several transactions. This is basically what blocks look like in Bitcoin blockchain. Then how do someone, let's say Alice, know how much Bitcoin she or he owns? Well, this can be figured out by simply going through all the transactions in the blockchain. For example, let's say currently the blockchain only has these two blocks and we have shown all the transactions related to Alice. Then Alice started with 10 Bitcoins. She gave 4 to 2 people, but she also receives 1 Bitcoin from Bob. So currently she has 10 minus 2 minus 2 plus 1, that is 7 Bitcoins. Blockchain is decentralized in the sense that data is stored in multiple nodes in the network. In the case of Bitcoin, anyone can join the Bitcoin network to become one of the nodes. These nodes are called miners. That's why you may have heard of the term mining for Bitcoin. In this figure, I show you a network with 3 miners. Every miner has a complete copy of the blockchain for Bitcoin, as you see in the picture here. In the last slide, I'll show you what Bitcoin blockchain looks like. In this slide, I want to talk about how its consensus protocol works. The consensus protocol for Bitcoin is called proof of work. This is the key mechanism to ensure every miner has the same blockchain and their copies of blockchain are updated at the same time. So here's how it works. First, each miner opens a new block. New transactions will be broadcasted into the network and picked up by the miners. These transactions at this point are pending because they haven't been written into blockchain yet. The miners will keep collecting these transactions until their new block is full. Once the new block is full, the miner will solve a mathematical puzzle. This puzzle basically is quite like giving everyone 100 dice and the winner is the first person to roll out 100 ones. Let's say this miner is the first to figure out the puzzle. Then he will share the block he created to other miners in the network for verification. Other miners will check if the transactions in this block make sense. For example, if a Bitcoin sender has sufficient Bitcoin for the transaction. Once the block is verified by more than half of the miners, a consensus is reached and all the miners will add this block to their copy of blockchain. At this point, the transactions recorded in this block is confirmed. That is why Bitcoin transactions are not in real time. There's a pending period before a transaction is confirmed. Also, the miner who creates this block will receive some Bitcoin as a reward. Actually, Bitcoins are created and enter circulation as a reward to the miners. The reward is important because that is essentially the incentive to motivate miners to join the network. So essentially, all the miners are competing to be the first one to finish a new block and solve the math puzzle. This activity is called mining. This is what a modern Bitcoin mining farm looks like. It's nothing but a bunch of computers. These computers are linked together to enhance computational power of this miner because the more computational power, the faster a miner can solve the math problem, and therefore a higher chance to win the reward. That is essentially how Bitcoin works.